Okay, all right. So let me just organize a little bit. Okay, all right. So Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kepada semua warga UiTM yang dapat bersama kita hari ini untuk mendengar taklimat mengenai Malaysia Open Science Platform, ya. So this is something that we do not have yet in UiTM, and I think it's something that is good for us to embrace and get our research activities and data and everything a little bit more organized. Yeah, so we are very fortunate today to have a very distinguished speaker to talk to us and about Malaysia Open Science Platform, which is none other than Professor CHM Dr. Noorsaadah Abd Rahman. So let me just give a short introduction to Prof. Noorsaadah. Okay, her biodata and her CV is definitely very long, but let me just give a short introduction for all of us to have a feel of who is Professor Noorsaadah. All right. So Professor Noorsaadah graduated with a bachelor degree in chemistry as well as master's degree in chemistry from California. Both degrees were California, and she's a chemist like myself. And later she obtained her PhD in organic synthesis from Cambridge University in 1990. Okay. She later then joined University Malaya and have surely gone through all the academic ladder at the University of Malaya until she was appointed as Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Innovation at the University of Malaya. Prior to that, she is also the DVC research. Prior to that, she is also served as the Director for the UN Institute of Research Management and Monitoring, IPPP. She was elected Fellow of the Malaysian Academy of Science in 2014 and was also accorded the Top Research Scientist Award, TRSM, in the same year. Okay. In 2018, she was appointed Fellow of Institute Kimia Malaysia. Okay. And currently, she co-chairs the Malaysian Open Science Alliance at the Academy of Science Malaysia that oversees the implementation of the National Open Science Initiative. In April 2023, she was elected as the Secretary General of Academy Science Malaysia. So you can imagine how busy Prof. Noorsaadah is and how precious is her time. So we are really very, very honored today to be able to steal 2 hours of her time in order to tell us about this Malaysia Open Science Platform. So without further ado, I will give the screen to you, Prof. Noorsaadah.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Adiani. If you will excuse me, I will not turn on my video because I think the network may not be good here, and I don't want to, hang halfway through.
That will be fine, Prof.
Okay, thank you. I promise I will not take 2 hours of your time. But thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share our initiative on Malaysian Open Science Platform. For those who have heard this before, actually I gave this same talk in UiTM in September, I believe.
Yes.
So I apologize. You may not want to stay on, but for those who would like to learn about this, I'll just go through, what.
It was a different audience, Prof. So don't worry about it.
Okay. So anyway, so I cannot man the slide from here. Unfortunately, I cannot share slides here, but I've already sent to Prof. Adiani. So could I have the next slide, please?
Secretariat, please, because the Secretariat will manage the slide for you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we actually have some issues and challenges in Malaysia, okay, in terms of, our research output. So we face, some of these issues, the one especially that I highlighted in red, for example, in order for us to actually look at people doing responsible science, we need to promote the research quality and integrity. And we have a major problem with predatory journals, I think, or fake journals, where, not by choice that we do this, but unfortunately, some of us are not aware, and we send our work, okay, our research output to, predatory or fake journal. We also would like to actually look at democratizing science, okay, because most of our research, whether we like it or not, is actually funded by public fund. We don't fund the research ourselves. We don't actually use our own pocket money to actually do research. We actually get them from public fund, from the ministry, which comes from the taxpayers' money. So the research that we do and the output actually is accountable to the society. And whatever output that we have, okay, should be able to, people should be able to use it and share it with we should be able to share it with other people. So policymakers, for example, can actually get data that we actually have done from our research to make informed policy for the country. In addition, science has changed a lot. We need a lot of participation from many people, because scientists cannot be in two places at one time. So we actually, this can also help us to democratize science by enabling citizen science participation. But most important, since being in the research management, for us, and also maybe for, university management, is, to gather all the research data together and actually try to maximize data utility. We know that, in Malaysia, whether we like it or not, most of our research, okay, is being done, 3 or 4 times, duplication of research. So if we don't actually, maximize the data that's already been collected and use it or reuse it for, a different purposes, then, we will start funding again, research that actually, to collect the same or gather the same type of data. In addition, most of our researchers are in the universities. Some of us are, like me, have retired, and the data is not actually collected or gathered anywhere. So, these data are lost, and, 3 years down the line, somebody else will have the same idea and write the same type of proposal to get similar data. Whereas what they can do is they can actually do, look at the gaps of what was not done by me, perhaps, and actually write a better proposal to close the gap or to enhance the data. So in terms of research management, this is also very important. And again, we can minimize the cost of unnecessary duplication of research, and we can do better planning in research funding. So, so these are some of the issues faced in Malaysia that open science actually can help. Okay, so next slide, please. What is open science then? Okay, open science actually it's not really new, but the term open science is coined in 1988 actually. So it seems like it's new, but it's not. It's just a continuation of the research practices that we have been doing all this while, since we were, in school, or even when we were doing our PhD, okay, where, there is a demand for access to the knowledge or scientific knowledge that has been achieved through the research that we've done. And so it became necessary for scientists to share. When I talk about scientists here, I also mean, all kinds of researchers. For the simplicity's sake, I'm just going to use scientists here. Okay, for scientists to share resources with each other, so that you can actually do work collectively and actually enhance the group work more. Okay, so it is actually a movement to make research data and its dissemination accessible to all researchers and the society. Okay, so it currently, when you actually collect your data, okay, you would analyze it and perhaps then publish it. Okay, now here lying the problem, because when we start publishing, we probably did not actually include all the data that we have collected. Okay, it could be, analyzed data, it could be secondary data, so it's not all the data that is being collected. And plus the fact that once we actually publish, the data or the publication then becomes copyright to the publisher. And for us, then to actually access this, if our universities, like most universities in Malaysia, we are poor and we are not able to subscribe to that particular publisher or journal, then we have to pay copyrights to access the work that we have done. Okay, so it's our work, but now we have to pay for it again to get, the data. So, it is not as simple as what it was before. Okay, previously, we just share the data is there, we can get access to it, but all these other issues now is coming into play. So what open science does is actually enable unhindered access to data, wants to enable unhindered access to data, especially from public funded research, and also to scientific articles, and also to enable collaborative research through ICT tools and incentives. Okay, when we talk about data here, we meant raw research data. Okay, that means not something that is already analyzed, it's not a graph, but it's a raw research data that others can get access to. Okay, since and there is a difference between what we meant by open science and open access. Okay, open access means basically it's just access to the publications that you have in journals. But when we talk about open science, it's bigger than that. Okay, but since currently the research data and article, in open science, it can be made transparent, accessible, and the knowledge then can be shared. It demands that the scientific work or the research work which we do is done with integrity and assures the accuracy of the data, okay, in an open, reliable, and reproducible fashion. Because people want to use your data, they will see, they will be able to see whether you are doing it correctly or you're getting the data correctly. It's not just faking the data, but also more importantly is the data reliable and reproducible. Because you may be doing it, you may be getting data for one purpose, but other people can reuse the data for another purpose, okay, for another research, for example. So they don't have to waste time and money gathering the data, but use the data that you have gathered, okay, in a different research, perhaps. Okay, so can I have the next slide, please? Next, please. Oh, sorry. Next. I forgot to move. Next slide, please. Not this one. This one's. Next slide, please. Okay. So what is open science, basically? Okay, there are 4 pillars to open science. Okay, there's open scientific knowledge, and this covers the scientific publication that we talked about, which is the research, the open access publication, but it also involved or covers or comprised of research data or raw research data, software, source code, and hardware that are available in the public domain or under copyright that is actually under open license. So these are any scientific knowledge that that you actually have, okay, that helps you in your research. Okay, then there's also open science infrastructure. More and more institution and country actually are moving towards this open science infrastructure, or open science source, they call it. Okay, where the set of equipment or set of instrument that is used for your research, okay, is now available for sharing. Okay, available for sharing. China has gone into even bigger initiative in actually sharing major equipments, like, for example, NMR, under the open science infrastructure. Okay, then we have open engagement of societal actor. This actually just means that, you know, we can now have other people that may not be, you know, professional scientists or researchers like the citizen science to actually be able to contribute to our research, you know, by actually also, you know, giving us or helping us with the raw data, you know, part of which where they can collect where we're not around, for example. And then the other one is open dialogue with other knowledge system, because, you know, there are many you know, complementary and diverse you know, systems such as indigenous knowledge, you know, that actually has never been you know, shared, or the data has never been shared, which could be shared to help you know, scientists develop research output and maybe help to solve some of the challenges that we faced, you know, globally. For example, you know, we may have indigenous knowledge on how to uh, clean a river. Okay, if you hear about the Tagal system in Sabah, where, you know, they actually, the indigenous people clean the, make sure that the river is clean, and actually how they clean the river. So, you know, that knowledge can be shared, you know, for other people to use, you know, in terms of, especially, you know, if you're working on maybe environmental or sustainability of and cleaning river or something like that, then you can actually share that data from indigenous knowledge systems. Okay, next, please. Next, please. Okay. So why do we do open science? Okay, just now I've already given you some of the issues, challenges that you know, we face when we are doing open science. No, previous slide, please. We haven't finished that one. The one previously, please. Slide sebelum ni. Okay, thank you. So, you know, why do we do open science? Okay, we want to do, why do we actually participate in open science? Because we want to make the scientific knowledge openly available and accessible and also reusable for everyone. Okay, and, you know, this can also help us increase the scientific collaboration and sharing of information for the benefit of science and society. Okay, sometimes, you know, you don't know people working in certain area, and they actually now crawl into your data and see, oh, this person actually is doing this work. Then they can actually now contact you and actually have collaboration with you. Okay, it also opens the process of scientific knowledge creation, evaluation, and communication to the societal actors beyond the traditional scientific community. Meaning, you know, people in the policy making can actually look at it. The society can also look at it, and, you know, and actually look at, you know, the knowledge that our research have created, and evaluate whether it is actually useful or not useful for them. Currently, you know, only when we do publication, for example, only our peers, especially within our discipline only, actually will be looking into it. But, you know, this now can open it up to, you know, more discipline, to other actors who are actually doing science beyond the normal community that you actually normally look at. So, you know, it actually enhance the quality and integrity of our data. It actually creates efficiency, cost effectiveness, and, you know, hopefully reproducibility. So your data now is actually worth more than what it was before with just your work, but it can also worth more with, you know, other people using it for different purposes. Okay, it can also help in the innovation and networking, particularly with industry, because industries, you know, sometimes, particularly small, medium industries where, you know, maybe our data is useful for them, do not actually read journals. But if they have access to the data, then they will be able to innovate better and actually perhaps add value to their products to actually enhance the, you know, their company or their industries. Okay, so next, please. So where next in Malaysia, next, thank you. So in Malaysia, actually, Open Science Agenda is in the DISTIN, or the Dasar Sains Teknologi Inovasi Negara, okay, which was actually announced in 2021, okay, under the Strategy 2.4, which is encouraging open data sharing to galvanize collaborative action. Okay, so this is where the open science agenda came in under the the Dasar Sains Teknologi Negara, Inovasi Negara. Okay, 5.2 is also somewhere where we can actually look into where open science can contribute in terms of mainstreaming the science communication, because we need to actually make scientific data and scientific knowledge more public than what it is now. Okay, as a term that KPT likes to use, or I think YB Menteri also said recently, is merakyatkan, penyelidikan. Okay, so this is where mainstreaming science communication can help. Okay, next please. So how did it begin in Malaysia? Actually, we started in 2015, where various party actually mainly under the Malaysian Research Management, the Newton Fund. Okay, the Malaysian Research Management Grant Project was given to at that time KPT, I think, and was the implementer body. So we actually started looking at research data management. That was not called open science at that time, or rather Malaysia did not call it as open science at that time, but looking at data management, curation and repository. At the same time, ASM participated in the APEC meeting that actually discussed open science in the APEC community. So in 2019, after that, the various group was consolidated, and actually the Open Science Consortia was actually formed under ASM. Okay, and in 2019, the consortium, the Malaysian Open Science Alliance, okay, was actually launched to steer the phase 1 of the Malaysian Open Science platform activity. This was launched by MASTEC at that time. And under this phase 1, there are three initiatives that we wanted to do, and this is actually supposed to originally be a two-year project that is supposed to finish by 2021. Unfortunately, we were hit by COVID, etc., etc. So this project was actually extended a little bit and until 2023. Okay, so this initiative actually started quite a while back. Although, to be honest, it is really late for Malaysia. Indonesia already has the Satu Data Indonesia already in 2016. Okay, so Malaysia is actually quite slow in doing this open science initiative. Next, please. Okay, so these are the number of alliance for the phase 1. Okay, we have various ministries, including Malaysia Ministry of Higher Education, Science, and various the academic science. Malaysia Research Universities. We started off with the 5 research universities first, okay, as a pilot project, okay, to look at how we can implement this, okay, and also because these 5 research universities are the oldest university in Malaysia, they have perhaps the most research data available, and whether we like it or not, because they're old, so their professors maybe have more senior and have many have already retired, so we do not want to lose this data. So we started off with the 5 research university first. So this is in phase 1. Okay, so don't worry, we are looking at phase 2, and we are going to invite all the other universities to actually join the alliance as an alliance member. So next slide. Okay, so the objective of the phase 1 actually is to gather and consolidate research data in Malaysia onto one platform that allow access and sharing of the research data aligned with the FAIR principle. I will talk about the FAIR principle later, okay? But this is the main objective, okay? So when we talk about open science, we'll talk about FAIR usually. So you will understand later what that means, okay? Next, please. Okay, so in phase 1, okay, we actually initiated 3 programs, okay, but The idea of this Open Science Initiative is actually to jumpstart the research data sharing nationally and internationally. So once we have this platform, we can share, people can share data, not only with the local institution, but also abroad, okay, to uphold the integrity of research activities in Malaysia, because, then, because the data is there, everything is transparent, we can actually presumably, okay, be a bit more confident on the integrity of the research that we do, to promote inclusive innovation ecosystem and to accelerate the translation of knowledge into products, services, and solution. Because open science can actually help to initiate open innovation. So, because now data is available, people can actually look at the data and actually use it to maybe innovate for new ideas and new products. Okay. So next, please. So these are the three focus area or the three initiatives that we begin under the Malaysian Open Science Platform, phase 1. Okay, first we actually have to come up with an open science guideline. We need to build capacity and also make people aware. Okay, I'm happy to say that, since 2023 now, there's a lot more awareness. When we started, people don't understand, and people, really think that when we talk about open science, they think it's open access, but now people are more aware, researchers are more aware. And also the third area we're looking at is the infrastructure, which is actually to build the platform, okay, that will enable the sharing of data. Okay, so next, please. So the output that we have actually done or gotten so far up to 2023, okay, we have already a guideline on open science for public funded research. Okay, if it's privately funded, like industrial funded, if industrial funding or personal funding, then you don't really, I mean, you don't have to actually subscribe to open science, although you're encouraged. But I can understand that if it's industry, sometimes industry wants the output of the research that you have done to be embargoed. You can still, participate in putting the data in the repository, but the data does not have to be open. Okay, but following the guideline, okay, we now have a national guideline. Following the guideline, which we have done through landscape studies, through stakeholder engagement, etc., etc., we now have it incorporated into the policy for what is it called? DASA, National Data Sharing Policy. Okay, there is a National Data Sharing Policy under Kementerian Komunikasi dan Digital, which was actually gazetted in 2022. Okay, so we did not want to have another policy on open science, sharing data. We actually now we went to actually discuss and talk to the KKD and incorporated the open science data sharing under the National Data Sharing Policy, okay, for the country. Okay, so we also were supposed to train data stewards. Okay, because when you actually do the open science and you actually put your data into the repository, it has to be in a manner where the data can be, well, first findable. Okay, this is what FAIR is. FAIR stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Okay, so the data stewards need to be able to help you to put it in a format that is findable, accessible, that's easy, but the most difficult one is interoperable and reusable. Okay, interoperable meaning that you can interoperate the data from one system to another or one format to another. Okay, and also reusable, that means if the data is interoperable, it's in a manner where you can actually interoperate and and from one system to another or one method to another, then it can be reusable for other purposes, if not for the same purpose. Okay. We also had some media and engagement and social engagement, and we have some podcasts, and the main important output is to build an integrated database on one platform that enables us to actually be able to find the data easily. Okay, so the data can be made discoverable. Okay, so next please. So this is the guideline. I think it's on the website of the Open Science. Okay, the guideline is formulated with input from, as I mentioned earlier, stakeholders, researchers, top management, organization, industries even. And it helps to clarify research data ownership and recognizes the role of data stewards, data curator, outline the appropriate rewards and incentives to data contributors, as well as establish rigorous security and privacy standards for data sharing purposes. Okay, so this actually is quite comprehensive. It's quite a thick copy, but what you can understand here also, it defines who owns what. Okay, data owner, who's data owner? Data owner basically is just the researcher, for example, but who is the data steward? Okay, so everything is actually put in here and now is actually supplementary to the National Data Sharing Policy at KKD. Okay, so next, please. Okay, so some of the overview that we have in here, okay, is it defines the type of published or documented research data, including raw data that can be shared under specialized condition, can be harmonized, okay, in terms of its definition and terminologies, and outline incentive for data sharing, okay. It also outlines the data research management plan from the beginning of research project until completion. So now everything is actually maybe very clear or can be made a lot clearer because you actually have your research data management plan from the beginning of your work. Okay, so you know what data you are collecting, and including especially like in we already have our data management plan, including pathway to impact. So it's easier for us when people ask us, okay, why are you doing this? Okay, or what do you expect the impact is? It's already in the data management plan. It also helps to ensure the raw research data to be accessible beyond the life of the project, and all metadata are permanently archived in the Open Science platform. So metadata basically is, if you think about what metadata is, basically it's just abstract knowledge of abstract of your work. Okay, that would be something that you sometimes in your publication, right, you have the abstract. So that's basically what metadata is in the Open Science platform. It's got its own identifier, etc., etc. And the raw research data is something that you put in, and what we want to ensure is that because you use it maybe for 3 years in your project, that data can be used by somebody else later. So the lifetime of your project, or your data is actually now longer beyond the life of your project itself. Okay, so that's why to us it's quite important, because these are actually valuable assets for the country. Next, please. Okay, so this is a platform. You can actually visit it at www.mosp.gov.my. Okay, it was launched in May this year by Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Sri Haji Fadilah Yusof, the Deputy Prime Minister. At the launching, there was about 1,300 data sets. Okay, these are data sets, but you have in one data set maybe thousands of data. Okay, so currently there are only 8 data lakes. This is what we call or 8 institutions. Okay, that actually contributing to this MOSP. But we hope subsequently our phase 2, which is supposed to begin next year, we are actually now talking to various other institutions and university and UiTM, if you're interested, actually to also be part of this, and actually be one of the data lake that contributes the data to MOSP. Okay, so if you go into MOSP, okay, can we go to the next slide? I just want to see whether, please. Okay, so if you go into MOSP, this is what happened. We don't actually take your data, we don't own your data, we don't actually put them in one place. Okay, what we have is a harvester, okay, in the currently at the academic science, okay, that actually hosts only your metadata, okay. So what your data, your raw research data and other data actually is at the university or your institution itself. So for example, my research data, the raw research data that I have, being a chemist, for example, my NMR, etc., is actually in the repository at the University of Malaya. But my raw data and my metadata is actually at, not only at the University of Malaya, but it is also crawled at the MOSP, or the platform that is built at, the academic science. Okay, so what happens is, if people are looking for information through MOSP, you can actually go into your the metadata, and subsequently, if you want to have more information, you want to actually know any of the data that you want to use, you actually go into the repository of the university itself. Okay, so your university has to have a repository where you actually keep all this raw research data and also other information. Okay, so next please. So what is in MOSP? Okay, there are about 10 disciplines in MOSP now. We cover not only the STEM areas, but also the social science and humanity areas. Okay, so the type of research data that is being put in are very different. Okay, whether you are a science-based or you are humanity-based, your data is very different. That's why the research data steward is very important. And they also need to understand the content of how researchers actually keep data and how researchers use data. So we have physics, engineering, material science, we have climate, environment, and biodiversity. We have arts and social science, so you can actually go into this, and depending on the area or whatever interest you have, you can actually go into MOSP, and then you can actually look at what is available there in terms of data for you to share. Next, please. Okay, so this is one example at the University of Malaya. So if you go into MOSP and you're interested in one of the, the work there, you can click there and say the work that you're interested in, or the repository that you're interested in is University of Malaya. Then you can click into the University of Malaya's repository, and you can actually get, into the UM's data institutional repository. Okay. So for example, when you click there, there are about 27 data sets in 7 research fields. So they're not all research fields. Just now we say in MOSP there are 10, but for University of Malaya, maybe 7 research fields is very, is where they are active in. So you can see, for example, here, is one example of, research data that has been deposited. It's called audio recording for documentation of Malaccan Portuguese Creole. So this is from, humanities. So what if you click onto the data there, if it's open, then, you will hear recordings of, between the researcher and the subject matter talking in the language, of the Portuguese Creole, for example. So if you want to use, there's also, for example, when I actually click on this, just out of interest, there's also a very senior or elderly guy singing in Kristang. So the person actually who's doing this work is Professor Stephanie Pillai, but she's probably interested in the language structure. But you may be looking at music, and you want to hear how the Kristang folk music sound like. Okay, so you can actually use the same data. You don't have to now go and interview the person again. Okay, so this is just one example of how you can use the data at under MOSP that is available. Okay, next please. So this is actually basically what is in there. This is the metadata. Okay, and you have all these information, like you even have identifier. That means this is like we use DOI at the moment, DOI, sorry, at the moment, and this actually identify your work. Okay, so it's like your IC. So you know that anybody who wants to cite, they can cite this. So the citation, your citation can also increase without you having to publish yet. Okay, so if you put in your data, raw data, and somebody else use it for other purposes, not necessarily for the purpose of your work. So this actually enhance or increase the citation that you have. Because, like, for example, earlier when I mentioned the example of Professor Stephanie looking at the language structure of Kristang, her area would be language, and previously, the citation will only come from people who does language or linguistic. But because she has the people, she has the data which has got somebody singing folk song, and but people from the music department now can use that. They can also now cite that data. Okay, do not have to go through the publication. So your citation is also now increased. Okay, so these are some of the information and the areas, and you can read through the metadata and see if it's interoperable, and you can use the data. And if you're interested, then you click on access data. So if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here are the data, okay, in the institutional repository, okay, and then you can actually click on, share, the metadata metric, and then they will give you the data. Okay, so if you go next, please. Okay, now, not all data, just because it's open science, it does not mean it's open for all, okay? So it is up to you as the owner to decide, and your institution as well, to decide whether this is confidential data or embargoed data, or you can share the data, okay? So for example, in this one, the researcher or the owner decided that, this is not an open one, it's a restricted file. So you know that she's working on this work, okay? Now, since the data is now restricted and you're not allowed to actually have the data, you can actually, there is previously, if you go back to the previous slide, there's contact owner there. So what you can do is you click on the contact owner, okay? There's a contact owner, and you click on the contact owner, it will go to the owner of the research data, and you can actually now make conversation with her and ask whether, you can get access to the file, okay? Now you can actually now either give it if you feel that, yeah, I can actually give it, or you can also now, make new collaboration for people who actually do not, I mean, for those who you do not know, and they want to share your data. So, you can now collaborate and actually, enhance your network, okay? So if you go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an example of unrestricted data, okay? So you see when they actually go to the data file, you can actually get all the data in the format, that is unrestricted. This is perhaps more of a chemistry data, so probably the chemists would understand, but, maybe people working in biochemistry or physics, if it's in a format that, is something that they can actually understand, they can reuse it as well. Okay, so I just grab some of the excerpt, but if you go into detail, then you know what these numbers mean. If you're a physicist, maybe you can use it further. This is actually from dentistry, but chemists can use it for other purposes, for example. Okay, so this is an example of how the open science can help you in enhancing your work. Okay, so next, please. So there are many challenges we face when we wanted to do this. Okay, people think that okay, this is open science, is good, we are all subscribe to it, but that's not necessarily true. So can we go to the next slide, please? So one of the major challenges we face is the researcher's dilemma. Okay, whether they want to open or not to open. Okay, not opening means you may have more opportunities, okay, more collaboration. You have higher visibility because, as I mentioned just now, you have BOI, you know who the data owner is. The data owner usually is a researcher. Okay, so you have, and also for the funders, is better value of investment. So, you know, you don't, I mean, the funders can also, because there would be funder there, funders can also get access to your data without having to, you know, look for you all over the places, you know. But some researchers want more exclusiveness. They want to have full control of the data. So the researchers, you know, do not want to open, you know, their data. Okay. Next. How do we how do we actually try to solve this problem? Okay. The open science tagline is to be as open as possible or as close as necessary. Meaning, as much as possible, you want the data to be open, but you know, if you know it is embargoed or confidential, then you can close it whenever it's necessary. Okay, so there is a difference between open data and fair data, and open science actually subscribe to what we call fair data rather than open data. Okay, so open data is data that are available to everyone to access, use, and share without any implication or restrictions on the patents, copyrights, and licenses. Whereas the fair data, okay, are data that is made available to researchers to access, use, share under certain condition depending upon the type of data. Okay, so FAIR stands for, as I mentioned earlier, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Okay, but you know, the data that is in the open science actually subscribe to this, meaning the data has to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, but it can only be accessed under certain condition, okay, depending on the type of the data that you have. If it's a confidential data, like, you know, for national security, then you can close it. Okay, but if it's any other data that you think is possible or is good to share, then you can open it. Okay, so the decision on whether to open or close, it's up to the owner and the institution of the institution. For example, in the University of Malaya, we have a University of Malaya open science policy. Okay, and in the policy, it actually you know, outlines you know, when is to be open, when it doesn't open, or you know, who is in charge, etc., etc. So you know, if you put if you have a policy in place and a proper guideline in place, then you know, the institution guideline then is probably easier for you to manage this. Okay, so I think this is where, you know, I think Prof. Hadiani wanted to look into this, because to me is very important for the data to be actually put in one place, okay, particularly those that are publicly funded, and you know, so that it can be reusable and, you know, people do not have to reinvent the wheel. Okay, so next please. This is another problem that we face when we put the data, because we put in the data in there, but then there are some data that's not interoperable or reusable because it is in a form of it's in a form that, you know, other people cannot use. For example, if you put a graph there and you say that's a data, the graph is actually a secondary data, that's something that's being analyzed already. So, you know, I can't use that data because I'm looking at some other angle and I needed the raw data. So these are the challenges that we need to currently look into, which is interoperable and reusable, reusability. Okay, and this is also a global problem at the moment. For example, if you go into the Korean data platform, you'll see they have millions of data sets. Okay, that means they could have billions of data, but it's not interoperable because we cannot understand the language because it's written in Korean. They are sharing, but you know, we don't actually understand. We know the metadata, but the data we don't know. So this is something that globally people are also trying to solve at the moment. Okay, next please. Okay, so governance and sustainability. So who manage the central platform? Currently, we agreed at the moment in the infancy stage, the platform shall remains in the Academic Science Malaysia and it is managed as under the alliance. Okay, not any one authority actually manage it, but the alliance actually manage the platform. We have to actually look at who would be responsible for the continuity and sustainability of this. And we need to look at incentives to encourage our researcher to deposit data. So there are many incentives now. Okay, people are looking into new methods or new methods for research assessment, and also new methods for promotion, for example, new incentives. Okay, because we have to admit, and we have to look at it now, that in looking at just publication as a standard to measure your productivity is not actually something that is fair. Okay, you have many publication, but you may not necessarily be the best researcher. So many publications does not make a good scientist. It does not mean that you are the best scientist or a good scientist. You just have many numbers of publication. Plus the fact that nowadays people are also looking for impact of your work, right? So publications, unless you are cited a lot, does not actually show impact to your work as much. Okay, and for Malaysia, I think where it's most important at the moment, because funds are limited. We are not very rich country. We need to also look into open infrastructure where we start sharing resources, and equipment to enable scientists and researchers to actually progress better. Or else we'll be stuck with only whatever we have, and we cannot make our science progress further. Okay, so next please. Okay, so I promise you it's not going to take you 2 hours. So I thank you for listening to me. I think this is the last slide. I'm happy to take any question or comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Noorsaadah. Such an enlightening talk. Okay. I think there are many questions probably in the head of our audience today. For information, I think we have online almost almost 200 participants, and now it's at 197. Okay, so maybe we can take up questions from audience, please. Hello. I'd like to highlight just one point that Prof had said in the beginning of your talk, is about that mostly research, especially in the universities, are not funded by our own pocket. Yeah, so I think that is a very fundamental thing for us to remember, because I'm sure if we're going to embark on this open science, we will be very hesitant to share data and so on. But I think it's a good reminder to researchers that we did not do the research using our own money. So whatever the outcomes, the data should be shared and should reach as wide an audience as possible. I think we do have appropriate questions from okay, just thank you for sharing. I'm expecting a question, Dr. Muzamil. Okay, there's a question from Dr. Muzamil there. Could you share any?
Just for information, okay, in Singapore, I went to, when we first started on this open science thing, I went to NTU, National Technology University in Singapore, NTU. And we asked them about open science and how they actually gather data, and the person actually in charge of the RMC there is actually also a chemist. So she said that they don't even ask the researchers to actually input in. If you go to your NMR and you actually put, you take your NMR, the raw data, the feed from the NMR immediately goes into the open repository.
Wow.
So they are at that level. Okay, we are still actually talking to our researchers, please put in the data, but they just take it and put it because to them it's publicly funded, it's funded by the university's grant and the public public taxpayers. So they have the right to actually keep the data. Okay, and then later they discuss with the researchers owner whether this is actually open or not open. So if it's not open, it is in the repository, it's closed, but at least you know it's in the repository. So should the researchers later resign or leave the university, the data is still there.
Yeah.
Now we don't know, if I've left the university, but what happened to my data? Okay, it's not there, right? Whereas these are valuable data that the younger researchers can perhaps use and not repeat, okay, whatever I've done. So this is where the importance of putting it in a repository, and the university can manage.
Yeah. Well, that is so much like Singapore, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, in Malaysia, we always negotiate, and somehow it makes it goes round and round the ring. Anyway, there's a question from Dr. Muzamil. Yeah, you can read it there. Could you share any insights or information regarding the reception and engagement of research universities with this initiative? I mean, the first, I suppose, Dr. Muzamil is talking about the first phase of the initiative. How did they take it? What was the response and the insights from that?
Actually, the response is quite good, of course, because I'm in UM. We started this actually before even MOSP. We have actually started talking about it. And at the moment, if you look into the data, MOSP, you see all the 5 research universities have data in there, except maybe UKM, because they are now reformatting their data to actually ensure that there would be interoperability. UTM has like hundreds of data sets already in there, but now they have to relook at interoperability. We try to make it as interoperable as possible. That's why you see very low numbers. The reason mainly being, our data stewards we don't have that many data stewards trained yet. We train about 200 something, but the people that actually really are hands-on are not many. In University Malaya, for example, we train 32, okay, but out of these 32, about 10 are actually research officers who actually understood. The rest are librarians, and they are now being retrained for content as a content specialist. So they'll be able to now look at the other data like biology data or chemistry data and be able to put in. To me also, this is where it is very important for the librarians, because library has changed. It's not like previously where it's just a collection of books and they have. To me, library is actually a knowledge commons where all knowledge can be gathered and go through. So it's very important for librarians to actually move with the times. So to me, this is the librarian's work. The reception, so to me, at the moment, the reception at the university, in terms of top management, they're good. In terms of RMC, they're excellent, because RMC really wants this data. But but in terms of researchers, they are, some are still hesitant because they're not sure what open science is about. I think senior ones are more skeptical or more less receptive to this, but the younger ones are very open to this, very happy to do this, mainly because I think they are the IT generation or the computer generation or whatever you call AI generation. So they could see, how this can actually helps further the progress of science. But internationally, there has been 3 or 4 programs, okay, that I think if Malaysia don't actually do this, we are going to be way behind others. climate change, for example, is one major area where, you know, open science is really, really big, because you need to share the data. I mean, you are staying in the tropical country, and you know the people in the temperate country wants to, you need to get their data to see how maybe the changes in the tropical, you know, atmosphere, you know, affect the temperate. There are many like that. The other one that, of course, you know, we actually face the COVID, the pandemic, you know, where, you know, sharing of data actually can actually make, you know, findings of, you know, that is required to actually mitigate the pandemic faster. Okay, you know, vaccine was discovered, whether we agree that it's a good or not vaccine, but it is still discovered very fast compared to, you know, what it was previously. You know, I mean, it will take what, Prof. Haidani, we know it'll take perhaps 10 years for us to actually, you know, come up with a medication. But, you know, if we share data, it actually can come out, we can come out with it faster. And the third area, which is the one that I'm most worried about, is biodiversity. Okay, because we, in Malaysia, we are a major biodiversity area, and this is our major asset. But people are working on biodiversity and sharing data, and if we are not on board, you know, our data will get shared without us on it, and we lose, you know, our data and, you know, our asset. So that is where I think I'm more worried about in terms of biodiversity, which, you know, the world is actually also engaging in open science. Amir.
And thank you, Prof, for the perspective. Yeah, I think it's really very important where biodiversity is concerned. I think that there's just a new national biodiversity policy that has been launched, published quite recently, but I do not know. I have not had time to actually delve into the document, but maybe there is no open science concept in there. So I think, yeah, it's very true. There's a few more questions on the chat board, Prof, from Professor Afima. It's about the status. I think you probably have elaborated that status on the Open Science Initiative in Malaysia. And the other one from Dr. Asmida is the associated risk or preventive measure that is associated with the open science. What's your thoughts about this?
Yeah, and I think that's also the same, almost the same question that I can answer from Dr. Adriane.
Yes.
On
security. Yeah.
Security. Okay, now, as far as the MOSP platform is concerned, we are just looking at the metadata. Okay, but it is the onus of the institution, for example, data repository, to actually make sure that the data is secure. Okay, so the security is at the university itself. Okay, even now, if it's not your research data, your personal data in the university, okay, that is the responsibility of, you know, your university to ensure that the data that you have, the personal data that you have, the students' data that you have is secure. So, you know, whilst, you know, at MOSP, you know, we actually tried as much as possible to you know, ensure that, you know, things are secure, but we are only looking at metadata. But, you know, institution has to look at the security data. In terms of the ethical issues, you know, plagiarized data, okay? This is also, you know, again, you know, the integrity actually has to lie in the, you know, researchers. But if the data is open and you are plagiarizing somebody, you know, it's a lot easier for you to be caught rather than, you know, in the paper, right? You know, if let's say, you know, somebody else plagiarized my data, I mean, I have a data that is in the open, okay, and somebody else take it and then claim it to be their data. But if you look at MOSP, there's the date and everything there is already in place. Somebody else taking it, I can only say that is my data. See, I've already deposited this earlier on, and you did not actually now acknowledge me, and you take that data. That's, you know, is much more transparent. Okay, in terms of whether the data is actually now fake data, which a lot of people are asking, are you sure that people are going to put in, real data? Again, it depends on the integrity of the researcher. Even now, if you publish, there's still fake data, right? People publish and suddenly there's retraction because the data is actually fake. But, but because again, it's in the open, there's a lot of people, I mean, it's now open to scrutiny, and maybe people can actually look at it and actually question you much more than than it being in the publication, I think. So so this question of plagiarizing and faking, actually it depends on the integrity of the researcher itself. So this is also another part of not open science, but part of being a researcher in the university, to look into the integrity and the ethics of the researcher itself. You can't put the blame on the system, which is an open science, if the researcher is actually faking or plagiarizing.
Yeah, so true, Prof. It's always come back to the integrity of the researcher and also the institution to take the responsibility of putting in the quality of data. Scientifically, Prof, who is, I know the responsibility is on the researcher, but for the data curation, how do we ensure the highest quality of data that actually goes into the platform?
Yeah, so this is the other thing that is very important, the data stewards that actually we train. Okay, the data curation process, actually there is a process of data curation. Okay, and the data stewards that we train, okay, needs to understand this. Actually, when we talk to the research data stewards that we have trained, they say that, basically what they do is actually they will work with the researcher for maybe 6 months, and subsequently the researcher will know, okay, this is actually the way to do it. And they can do it themselves, and the data, the researchers can put the data in themselves. Malaysia, we are just new, right? But I was in China with a group of Chinese open science people. They have been at it since 2003. Actually, they were ahead of us. But I asked them about this as well, as you mentioned. The quality of the data. They say, okay, they have had complaints, many complaints as well, in terms of some of the data they have, which researchers who actually downloaded it and actually wanted to reuse it say the quality is not there. So I asked what do they do? They say, okay, then they actually now put them into research assessment thing. Okay, like your promotion, for example, if your data people download and there's so many complaints about your data not being accurate and not good, then the marks given to you in terms of your promotion will be lower. So yeah, and we are, as I mentioned just now, we are looking at different modes of assessment, right? We cannot just use paper as publication as the only mode, because one, as I mentioned earlier, the number of papers does not mean that you are, again, like papers, right? You have we have many people who actually publish hundreds, but again, we wonder whether the person is actually really a good scientist or not a good scientist, right? Can you publish 100 paper in 1 month? Okay, for example, where is the data, right? So the same thing is actually in your data in open science, except that in open science is your raw data. In the journals, actually is which actually encourage more possibility of faking, because you are actually now manipulating data. Okay, that's how we do it when we write journal paper, right? So for every system, it's not foolproof, but there are actually ways of looking at it to make it better than the previous system, I think.
Thank you, Prof. I think you have responded probably to comments and question from Andrian on the chat box. There's one more from Dr. Amirul Alif about data that has been quite old, for example?
Yeah, to me, data is data. Okay, so if it's 10 years ago, you put it in, okay, you may say it's obsolete, but to you, but to somebody else who's using it for something else, it may not be obsolete. For you, remember I said that just now that, you know, your data now can be beyond your lifetime, okay, of the project. Okay, so your project is obsolete, but somebody else's project is perhaps not obsolete. They may be looking at historical, or they may be looking at something else, but you know that they can use the data for. So to me, data is actually, you know, a valuable asset. You know, whether they are old or not old, okay, but it's something that can be reused for other purposes. Then you know, that's good. So you can still share if you have, yeah.
Very well said, Prof. Of course, it's not just our project will may be obsolete, but we ourselves as scientists can be obsolete too, right? But the data, yes, the data that is created will be there.
So yeah, that's the I saw the other concern that Dr. Adrian has, that AI that this data can for other purposes without your knowledge. Okay, again, you know, as I said, this you know, you can block it if you don't want people to actually have it open. Okay, the data is in the repository. Of course, you know, your institution is responsible to make it secure, but you don't have to share it. Okay, so if you block it, you say it's closed, those people who wants to use it have to contact you and the institution. So it's not without your knowledge. If you want it to be open, then yes, people can use it without your knowledge. They have to acknowledge you, because, you know, subsequently, if we can find out that, you know, they're using your data without your knowledge, then yeah, without acknowledging you, then that's, we can, I mean, action can be taken, right? But, you know, but because it's open, they can use it without your knowledge. But if you don't want them to use it without your knowledge, then you close it. And they can only use it by contacting you. All right?
All right. Is that clear, Adrian? There's a request from Nina, Prof, about success stories for the Malaysian Open Science Initiative.
Success story.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we don't have yet, so there's not very many yet to look at success story. I've not actually seen any yet for Malaysia at the moment, but I can look into it, because one of the program that we are looking at is precision biodiversity. Okay, and for precision biodiversity, we need to have the data. Okay, and currently, you know, project is ongoing, and you know, data is being shared to look at, you know, precision biodiversity and how this can be used, you know, to actually leverage upon our biodiversity for innovation. That's one. So to say success, we have not seen any impact yet, but it's starting. The guideline is there. There's another project headed by Prof. Hebrejo in zoonotics, you know, trying to actually, you know, look at the data, gathering the data, and you know, in the open, gathering as much data as possible, you know, to mitigate any possible, you know, subsequent health problems that can arise from zoonotic diseases. But globally, if you ask me, COVID-19,
Yeah,
okay, it's one major success of open science.
definitely. Yeah. Prof, you mentioned something about the incentives to encourage researchers to deposit data. Okay, so as a pioneering institution, has started this open science much earlier than the others. So can you share some of the probably initiative that has done in order to encourage the researchers to deposit data?
It's not so difficult for us originally, because okay, we actually do apply for a lot of international grants, right? The grants in Malaysia is really sikit kan, we not
Yeah.
have enough. So a lot of our researchers actually applied for international grant. And in one situation, before we started this, one situation, the researcher actually applied for an EU grant. I was the TNC at that time. And the comment coming back is not that the research is not a good research, but we don't have policies on data management and open policy.
I see.
So tak dapat lah the grant.
Mhm.
Subsequently, we managed to get one grant from the Research Council of UK. Again, we did not have any open science policy or platform then. So the sad thing about it is, then our researchers also came back to us and they told us that, they can actually participate in this, but all the data that they have from Malaysia has got to be deposited in the repository in Glasgow University.
Mm.
So, these are Malaysian data.
Yeah.
Now you actually must deposit it there, no control at all anymore, right? At least if it's deposited in Malaysia, we can control and say we can open it to your researcher in Glasgow or our collaborator in Glasgow. But now we have no control.
We just have to use their platform.
We have to use their platform.
Wow.
So with this, we started, and subsequently, all our researchers discovered that to apply for a lot of international funding, okay, we have to have this policy. So this is one major incentives. We are looking at other incentives and other merit, like maybe for promotion, we're not going to rely only on publication, but maybe look at the data citation.
Mhm.
Publication citation, but data citation, how much data citation you have, and this can be maybe a bigger impact, because the data citation does not necessarily mean it comes from your peers only. It can come from the ministry who is making policy, right?
Yeah.
EU data, okay? Or consultancy work that you do. So, all this actually we are looking at how, the new, it's not only UN, but because we're also involved in some of the global, initiatives, globally also talking about new methods for assessing research, for example. So, hopefully this can help, make the system more fair, and can help us in looking at how research can be more impactful rather than just within the lifetime of our project.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you, Prof. I think it's definitely we just have to look at things like in a bigger view than just ourselves as scientists, isn't it? There's so much more advantages by sharing it if we looked in a wider scope, definitely. You talk a little bit about the open infrastructure, right? I know there's been initiatives here and there in Malaysia to optimize the research infrastructure, but still we have not seen one that is so solidly working at the moment. And as you say, as you rightly pointed out, also Malaysia has been late in the open science. Indonesia probably is much ahead than us, and they have also launched this initiative that is called RIM, a national infrastructure sharing platform, I think. I do not know how the detail of their program, but what I know is that it's actually a virtual platform where institutions and agencies actually participate in the program and offer and open up their services to the whole community in the country. So how are we, Malaysia, going to move this open infrastructure agenda probably for our country? Well, knowing that we are behind anyway.
Yeah, this is something that we need to work out. I have spoken to some of the DVC's PNI, of the public university so far, not the private, and they are also they're also actually open to this idea of, open infrastructure. In fact, most of the universities like this idea because, we know that we cannot afford half the time, to have, major equipments in our universities. So I think we need to actually come up with a guideline and policy, again, a platform on how we can do this sharing. Okay, the systems are there already, as I mentioned. I mean, I remember when I was in France, okay, to do NMR, I don't really have to go into the NMR room, okay? I need to just send my sample and I can actually get access from my lab without having to go to the NMR, okay? Because there are already a software in place that you can actually, connect to the equipment remotely. Yeah.
Remotely controlled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's remotely controlled. So, there are ways that we can do it, but we need to come up with a guideline. And I think, if we can actually maybe talk to maybe the 5 research universities that pioneered the, open raw data sharing, okay, can actually now look into open infrastructure, come up with a guideline and actually look at how we can share, and subsequently we can get more and more sharing facilities. So I'm not sure how to do this yet. They have been talking about it at MOST, and I'm sure, I think they are also talking about it at MOHI, because, most of the equipment that we use as well are funded by them, right?
Yeah.
So I think they also want to optimize the use of the the equipment that is funded by them. It's just not one group or one institution benefiting, but as many as possible. So hopefully they'll come up with a guideline, and we can do some pilot initiation in terms of open infrastructure. Open resources, open educational resources is much easier to look at, okay? There are many universities already, like for example, UKM has a lot of online resources, education resources that can be shared under the open education resource platform. Okay, this is something that I've not talked about as well, but open educational resources is also one initiative or one part of open science. As I mentioned, open science is just not about open access and publication and data. It also involves open infrastructure, as I mentioned, and open educational resources, because open educational resources is actually quite, people in this African continent is actually much faster or well ahead of us, because they lack a lot of these educational resources. So they, as a continent, we talk about Malaysian Open Science Platform. Africa is an African open science. So it's the whole continent of Africa. Similarly, Latin America is also Latin American open science. They don't actually do countries. We here, because I think ASEAN, we are not really that, together yet as what the Africans are doing, or the, the Latin Americans are doing. So we are doing maybe country by country. So, we have Malaysian open science, they have African open science, and Latin American open science.
Okay.
And European open science, actually. Europe is European open science, the whole of Europe.
Well, thank you, Prof. Just probably one last question from me is coming back to your ITM, okay? Being a very big university with many campuses all around the country, and with of course very limited resources, as our research activities flourished and developed, we face many challenges. So I feel that it is even it is very critical for us to have some kind of platform, data sharing, for us to manage our research outputs as well as other information. So that's why we are very much interested to learn about this open science. So I hope maybe in the next phase of your initiative for Malaysian Open Science, UiTM will be invited. And it seems that I think there's some information that Dr. Muzammil have shared that our librarian probably has been preparing themselves, has developed a data platform as well. So which is great. I think they are in position to participate. But what's your advice? How do we get started? Because I think what I could catch from your presentation is that UM has started by actually establishing your own university's open science policy. Is that where we should start, or how do we get prepared to participate in the role?
Okay, I think, okay, I may be biased, but I think the easiest way or the start of it is to actually have the policy. That's how
Yeah.
we do it in Malaysia, right? We have the guideline and then we move to policy, because then you have the authority. Malaysia likes punca kuasa. They always ask me, who's the punca kuasa? Okay, you buat ni, punca kuasa ni datang dari mana? Okay, punca kuasa for open science is actually the cabinet paper in August 2020. Okay, because 2020 that cabinet approved and fully endorsed this policy, this program. Okay, so dia nak ada punca kuasa. So policy would be good, and in UM that's how we started, because then it's easier for the researchers to actually see. Okay, we have this policy, we need to actually follow. So kalau you do it, groups and groups and groups, then it becomes difficult later to coordinate. Okay. The reason I actually didn't see this originally, but Malaysia, as we do this, we do it as we started it as a policy. Australia actually came to Malaysia later. We actually learned from Australia how to do open science, because Australia has been doing this. I mean, actually, it's like 15 or 20 years ahead of us. Okay, so we had this guy, Ross, who actually was one of the pioneer for open science in Australia, came and actually advised us and told us that, you have to do it right, because he said that in Australia, there are many initiatives. They are very, very open in terms of their data sharing is very, very good, but it's very difficult now to coordinate because they have no policy. So they come to Malaysia to learn how we do the policy instead of us learning from them how to do the open science. Okay, and I understand that because when we have meetings, initiative for Malaysia, that's just one source, so it's easier for us to actually coordinate. Whereas in Australia, you have this group, that group, this group, that group.
Oops. Looks like macam kita terputus. Oh. Hello. Hello.
Okay, Prof. Hi.
Okay, kita boleh dengar dah. I think somehow we got disconnected a little bit just now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so as I mentioned, you ITM, you are big. So it's probably good to actually have one policy. To have a policy. In UM, what we did, we started off with a task force. Now, the composition of task force is very important to us. The research management office must be it, because when we're talking about data here, we're not talking about any other data. We're talking about raw research data, right?
Yeah.
So the research management unit is very important. The library is also very important. Because subsequently we think that the librarians should all be trained as data stewards because they are the knowledge knowledge opener for for everybody. And the third group is your
IT people.
IT people, because they will have to ensure your repository is good, your security is good, you have enough storage space, etc., etc. So we have all three in as a task force to look into this, and these are the group that actually did the policy brief, and then after that we actually come up with a policy and actually take it up to our board of directors, board of governance, university board of governance, and implement it. And then subsequently we train our data stewards lah. And the way we do it then is maybe you in your case you want to look at some groups which major research team which has got a lot of data, and one of the data stewards actually be put with you in terms of hands-on curation of data.
Data curation.
Yeah, because when we did this in when we did the training, we realized that if they don't have hands-on training, it's not going to work very well. So we actually took 10 of our researcher data steward, and each of them we actually assigned to two research team, research program, and they help the research program in terms of putting in data. And what is even better now or nicer is that the data stewards, most of them are librarians, actually wanted to be involved in the research itself from the beginning, so that they would understand how to actually curate the data and also be part of the research, which to me is good, because now you have the librarians also being involved in research. So,
Yeah.
it helps a lot.
Wow, that is very, very interesting, Prof. And thank you so much for all your tips and guidelines and all the briefing today. I think it's past 4 o'clock now. Okay, even though even though it's not 4:30 yet, we had planned not to go up to 4:30 anyway. Thank you so much. I think this has been such an enlightening session. Malaysia is late. UiTM is late, but I think
it's not late. There are many. Actually, you have a very good open science, person working on open science at one of your branch, Dr. Wahida, I think.
Oh, okay, all right. We'll look at
I think Remban or mana, because she has been in touch with me, and we have worked with her on some of these training things, and I think she even received Fulbright fellowship to actually go to the States to work with Paula Leckie on open science.
Oh wow, maybe she's from the information technology management faculty.
So you do have people in UiTM who actually know.
Yeah, right, great. So so it has been such a nice session. I think we have almost 200 audience here. So hopefully we can make good of this session and start something nice for UiTM, following the footsteps of UM, and make all your initiatives, Malaysian Open Science Initiative, worthwhile. So with that, Prof, I think thank you very much. Maybe we want to, all the audience want to join me in thanking Prof. Noorsaadah by putting your hands together, please.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Do we want to take a photograph, Secretariat? Who's behind the screen at the Secretariat? Haryani or Muzamil, do we want to take a photograph before we end the session?
Penyanyi,
Okay,
please.
boleh, Prof? Oh, okay, Dr. Muzamil, silakan.
Okay, please turn on those with the camera on, please put it on. Okay, who's taking the picture?
Ya, Puan Yani.
Kejap Prof. Okey. Saya ingatkan Prof yang ambil tadi.
Tak, saya tak kerti benda-benda ni semua.
Okey, tak
Puan
apa.
Yani, kira
Boleh 1, 2, 3. Okey, second page. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next page. Itu sajalah yang dah buka kamera. Baik, terima kasih.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Once again, thank you so much, Prof. Sadah.
Thank you, Prof. Dani and all for listening. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Bye.
wabarakatuh. Okay, back to you, Hayani.